probably to get to. I will call up the first bill, HB number 1308, grooming of a child, established as a criminal offense. This is it was written as a very similar bill, but as you remember, in our committee, we took out a few things that we didn't want in there, like we didn't want that to be a registrable sex offense, and we also didn't want any entrapment going on where law enforcement posed as one of these people to try to get somebody to, make a mistake and prosecute them. So those two things we took out. So what you see before you is the Senate strike all language, where we basically do the same thing we did earlier and remove those two items out of the bill. And that's what it does. Any questions? If not, for a motion.
Title sufficient, do pass, strike all.
The motion is title sufficient, do pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 1338, we have unmarked vehicles revised provisions that regulate, and we have Commissioner Tyndall with us. Yes, Commissioner Tyndall, please come join us and tell us what the goal of this particular bill is that the House has sent to us, I think, working with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in looking at the unmarked vehicle bill last year and kind of contemplating it, it looked like a bill that had been around for a long time, but there was just a lot of exceptions added over the years. And I guess with some of the old legislative hat kicking in, thought it might be a good time just to clean it up a little bit and eliminate some of the exceptions. And if you look at the very back of the bill, you can see a lot of the exceptions that we're kind of removing and putting in some language that would hopefully cover that. But for example, an exception was the Pascagoula Municipal School District had 3 motor vehicles that could be unmarked. And DHS had the same thing, and some of the other, the airports could have it. And so just looking at it, it looked like a bill that a lot of exceptions have been added to over the years. We thought it could be cleaned up a little bit to make a little more sense. And that was really the goal of what we're trying to do. In paragraph 1, if you look at that what that part of the bill or in current law deals with is the markings on all cars, all state vehicles, all municipal vehicles, all government-owned vehicles have to be marked with a certain style of lettering, certain sizes. If you go to line 31, and this is again current law, that's where we started having a list of exceptions in the current law as to vehicles that did not have to be marked. If you went down to line 39, we added back in some of those exceptions that were in the back and put them in the beginning so that it's clear, not in the back of the statute, but where those exceptions are, and they kind of take place at the beginning. Then if you go to line 57, you'll see where, and again, most of this is current law, where various state agencies are given exception to have 1 unmarked vehicle. So we kind of put all that in line. Then when you start at paragraph 2, the governor can approve for various state agencies if they have investigators. We have to submit a list to him. He looks at it, then he turns it over to the Department of Audit, and they maintain a list of all the agencies that have unmarked vehicles for investigative purposes. Municipalities do the same thing, except it has to be approved by the board or the city council, and then again sent to the auditor. And what we added was, instead of having like the Pascagoula School District had an exception, we added language that any board or municipality, airport board, not a municipality, but airport board or school district, if they had investigators and they needed them to have unmarked vehicles, then they could add that on their minutes and then again submit that to the auditor so that it's being tracked the same way across the state, and you just don't have these list of exceptions that were currently in there, and everybody is kind of getting treated the same instead of various exceptions being added over the years. So I will say that Representative Scott on the House side made an amendment at line 31, and there was some confusion on the House floor about the bill and the different sections. I think it was a good amendment, but pleading the fifth. But I think it was put in the wrong part of it was a good, I talked to her about it afterwards. I agree with what she was trying to do. It was just putting the wrong part of the bill. I mean, it was kind of already covered. So, I think you discussed putting a reverse repealer in it so we can continue to work on the language and really come up with I think a bill that will read better and easier for everybody to follow when it comes to keeping up with and tracking unmarked vehicles in our state. And if you look at what we had a couple agencies within our department that had authority for unmarked vehicles. Capitol Police had authority for one. We took that out. And, DPS is treated like all the other agencies and given authority for one unmarked vehicle unless it's investigative purposes.
All right, so I think we understand the purpose and what you're trying to accomplish to simplify those sections so that instead of saying who can't do it, you kind of just say who can do it, perhaps?
You already can do it. It's just kind of clarifying the language, as to what those exceptions are. And again, I love the Pascagoula School District, and I know Senator Wiggins, represents a great school district, but it was odd to me that they had an exception for 3 unmarked cars for the Pascagoula School District in the statute. So again, it treats the Pascagoula School District like any other school district. If that board wants to adopt it because there's a reason for them to have unmarked cars, I don't know what that would be, they can adopt that. And it's got to be for investigative purposes and law enforcement purposes, and then they turn it into audit, and that list is maintained there.
I know in a lot of school districts that are high performing, some of the students from surrounding lower performing districts try to come to the school and enroll as though they have an address in that school district. And sometimes the schools need unmarked cars to follow those kids or parents home to track their address. I know that happens in Summerall all the time. So that's probably one reason for the unmarked cars for school districts among maybe some others. But all right, you've heard the explanation of the bill. Are there any questions for Commissioner Tyndall? Senator Hill?
Thank you, Commissioner. I have no problem with unmarked cars and especially having a little bit more accounting for them. But this kind of goes back to a bill that this body passed about impersonation of a police officer. And don't you agree that most times they're in an unmarked car?
When they're impersonating?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Are you aware right now that the current penalty in the state of Mississippi for doing that, or maybe using that and pulling a woman or a teenage girl over in the dark, is a $100 misdemeanor fine?
I was not aware it was that low, but I would certainly love to see that increased.
Well, I would ask that the bill that we passed is pending in House Jud B today, single referred, I think. So if we can get any help on that to get that out of committee, it raises it to a felony like all the other states and brings the fine kind of midway between all the other states around us. So I would ask for any help to get that out of the Jud B today, because it's going to die on the committee if somebody doesn't speak up and help get it out. So with all this expansion of unmarked cars, I would think you would agree that we certainly need to look at that.
Absolutely. And again, this might be a vehicle where we can address that.
I think it might be. That was my second thought. Thank you.
All right, any other questions? Senator Simmons? I think Senator Sparks maybe had asked me about an amendment first.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Commissioner 25187, is that the only code section in the bill? That's all I see. Is that what you understand?
Yes, sir.
I would, certainly the reverse repealer is available. I would offer an amendment at the proper time, if I may explain it, is just to bring forward 25187 as written and add a reverse repealer, and then let's get the language together before we go to the floor. Would that be amenable?
I think that's perfect.
Okay,
Perfectly fine.
then that would be my motion.
Any questions for Senator Sparks on his amendment? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, Senator Simmons for motion. You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Commissioner Tyndall. We appreciate your hard work on this. House Bill 1203 is a camping bill, and what you have in front of you is our strike all that puts our Senate language dealing with camping, soliciting, aggressive panhandling, all of those issues. Plus, it would add a provision that Senator McMahon had been working on dealing with creating a fund that municipalities can use to clean up both public and private property, that he was very interested in having included in that. I think that's section 2 of the strike all. So essentially, it goes back to the Senate language plus Senator McMahon's language on creating the municipal fund that towns and municipalities can use to clean up public and private properties. It doesn't say where the monies come from, but it does, I think, allow them to raise private funds, get grants, those sorts of things. It doesn't obviously appropriate any state dollars for said purpose. So that is the strike all before you. Any questions? We'll be glad to try to answer. Senator Hill.
I appreciate the idea of doing this fund to be able to take in some private funds, but isn't it current that if they do take in private funds, that they would have to have a separate account? This will make it legal for them to do it just for that, because I know some people tried to set up a private fund for some things that my police department wanted, and so the city couldn't handle it. They had to handle it on their own. So this will allow the city to handle this and to
That's the
take it in.
purpose. I
Yeah,
think Senator McMahon was dealing with Tupelo in particular and trying
Yeah.
to take in private funds for
yeah.
public cleanup,
Okay.
that type of thing.
Okay, thank
They didn't
you.
want to run afoul of the whole constitutional
right.
giving, you know,
Yeah,
gifts or whatever, that type of situation. So they're trying to stay within the bounds of the
Yeah, I
law,
got
and
you.
yet they have private dollars available.
think it's probably a good idea. Thank
I
you.
think it's probably a good idea, yeah. Senator Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the bill and certainly think that homelessness or encampments in certain cities can be a problem. I just don't know the effectiveness of charging someone a fine or a fee when they're homeless or, living in an encampment. But anyway, I do support the fact that we're trying to help with the homeless issue, but I don't know that will be effective, but thank you.
That's a good point. I think we're trying to do something to give law enforcement some ability to have a stick and a carrot. Right now, they have really no punch to be able to go to someone and say, if you don't do this, then this consequence follows. So they need some type of consequence, and we don't want to be so punitive that we further harm someone that's already in a bad place. But yet, if you have no sticks to use at all, they tell us that they basically politely ask and are told to go kick rocks, basically. So we got to try something, and this may not be the right thing, but I'm sure working together with you all, we will figure out the right path. So thanks for the question. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Yes, McCon.
not McMahon.
I was going to say, well, different area, sorry.
Which I'm flattered. Nice.
Clearly, yeah.
I do have some concerns, and I appreciate our Judd A chairman being in here as well. We
Absolutely.
do note the U.S. Postal Service in here as a notice provision. That may be something we need to start reviewing as a whole, because I don't know about y'all. A lot of my notices aren't going out and getting there when they need to be. So just as a whole, we may want to consider that in the future.
Yes, you're correct. We have a very capable chairman of Jud A, who is also a very valued member of this committee. He brings a lot to the table. We appreciate his input. All right, anyone else? All right, then for a motion,
Title sufficient do pass as amended.
House fees do pass as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Okay, let's try again. All in favor, please raise your hand. We'll count. Okay, the chair is no longer in doubt. All right, that's some loud nays up in here. Very nice. The motion passes. I mean, I tried to be fair. Okay, there's one additional bill on the agenda, House Bill 565. I'm not calling it up right now for voting, but I would like, because I'm just not familiar with it, but I would ask Senator Sparks, I think he's been looking into it, to kind of explain what the purpose of it and what it attempts to do, and then we can discuss and kind of decide what we want to do moving forward with it. So Senator Sparks, you're recognized to explain, for informational purposes only, 565 to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill deals with folks that are certified law enforcement. There's a board of standards and training that to a great degree is the keeper of that certification. And when you go to work for a particular agency, could be a municipal police force, sheriff's department, et cetera, from time to time, you leave their employment. And the concern I think that we have from agency to agency and even at our statewide agencies is that if an officer resigns, there may be justifiable reasons. They may be moving somewhere. They may have a different job in maybe private security. But if there's a resignation, that should be made in notice to the board. And if they are terminated or resigned due to disciplinary action, the agency that has been employing the officer shall notify the board within, in this bill, it purports 72 hours of the termination or resignation, so that there's an explanation of the termination or resignation. Simply what we want to do, good officers are out trying to do a good job. But as with all human beings, there are sometimes people whose behavior no longer allows them to serve in a particular capacity. And unfortunately, from time to time, people resign and leave to avoid having to deal with the reality of maybe they shouldn't be in that field. So to a great degree, to protect a future employer in law enforcement, we just want to make sure that that is getting to the people who actually hold the license. There are processes if someone has an allegation against them to have a hearing and all of the different things that relate to the individual licensee, the officer. But this is more so putting a duty on the agency or the law enforcement agency that has hired the individual to let the board know if someone left in a less than good circumstance. That's a brief explanation of the bill. And there would be consequences if the law enforcement agency fails to adhere to the reporting requirements. They potentially would be affected with their eligibility for state grants and other funding. But at the end of the day, this is to make sure that we are doing a good job for the general public, but also for our friends in law enforcement. And as I understand it, this is supported by our friends in law enforcement, from the sheriffs to the police chiefs, and I think some of their people are in the room. But I do want to make sure this is a bill that comes to us to a great degree from law enforcement, and also is explained to me by the author of the bill from the House.
Well, I appreciate the explanation of the bill, and certainly thanks, Senator Sparks, for running point on this and trying to bring it to our attention. I would simply say I've not heard from anybody about this bill, and I'm hesitant to bring it up for a vote without having first talked to the interested parties. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to rise and report. All in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. I'm sure we'll be hearing from them shortly.